Vincenzo'S Go Crypto Investing on this beautiful early November. 2/3 of the way through, pushing to within 29 days, if you can believe this, to my beautiful listeners, of the greatest time of the year, the start of winter time. And in a couple of weeks, we're going to start getting snow in the great state of Michigan, right? But on with the more important news, as the news of the day and the news of the week and the news of the month and the news to end 2022, as the Federal Reserve is going to have their conference today, right? And they're going to talk about their interest rate hike that they're going to do today, more than likely 75 basis points. But most importantly, they're going to talk about how their overall fight against inflation is going right now, and the markets seem to think that they're going to be more bullish for the markets by saying they're winning the inflation fight and they're not going to have to be as aggressive with interest rate hikes in 2023. Wall Street main index opened lower on Wednesday ahead of the interest rate decision by the Federal Reserve as a jump in private payroll fueled fears that the central bank would not temper its aggressive stance on future rate hikes. The Dow Jones Industrial fell, blah, 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 blah. But they're basically even. Let's see. U.S. Treasury securities expected to be unchanged in November to January. The U.S. Treasury index to hold the current auction size of normal coupon securities and FRN steady over the next 3 months after a decision over the past year. Its quarterly refunding announcement Wednesday showed Treasury believes that current issuance size leaves in well position to address a range of potential borrowing needs, and as such does not anticipate making any changes to normal coupons. Oh, I wish I had some water in here. Normal coupons and FRN new issues or reopening auction size over the upcoming November 2022 to January 23 quarters. The Treasury said next week the Treasury will sell $40 billion of 3-year notes, $35 billion 10-year notes, and $21 billion 30-year bonds. Any unexpected borrowing needs will be met by changes in regular bill or cash management bill size. It said the Treasury also said that it will maintain the size of its November 10-year TIPS reopening size, increase the size of its 5-year TIPS reopening in December by $1 billion, and make no changes to the size of the 10-year TIPS auction. In addition, the Treasury said it's considering implementing a securities buyback program. That's kind of like a stock buyback program. And what the big corporations do, they buy their own stock back to boost their prices up, to make investors happy. And we'll have more information on a possibility in futures refunding announcements, right? So that's very important too. Some more things from the Treasury as well as the Fed. And the U.S. dollar has been declining because the market thinks that the Fed's going to start their language, not that they're going to change really course on this meeting, but the language in which they speak is going to become more bullish to the markets based on the language of the Fed, right? It's all about the language. And the language the last 9 to 10 months since the start of 2022 has been we're going to tighten, we're going to continue to tighten, and we're going to fight inflation at all costs. That's been the tone and the language, right? But if the language today is we seem to be taming inflation and it's slowly starting to slow down, and we feel like we're in a good position, and we may start we're going to still fight inflation, but we don't feel like we're going to have to do it at all costs. Anything like that, that's an easing of the language, right? But as we move on from that, we're going to get a quick way into the Bitcoin price and the XRP price here because I got to get back in the work. Your 50 cents is the critical area. Nothing has changed in this overall technical analysis since the great pump, right? If we start from a macro time frame, we go to the weekly time frame. As you do know, this is the mean of the history of the coin. We had our pump in 2018. Then we had this consolidation, and this is what we've been playing off ever since. We call this symmetrical triangle. It has a technical target of 18 to 20 cents, and we figured that out when the price was up in there. right? We broke down out of it right here in this circle, had a big flush. Now we got this dinosaur looking bear market rally where you have the big flush, then you have a double bottom, and then a neck and a consolidation. It looks like a dinosaur. Those usually turn around and break down to the downside after a while, but they can break up and get to some higher levels briefly, because if you take this old support, come on, the fuck is all this shit in there? If you take this old, we got to unlock it, go into here, unlock. If we take this old support and draw it down, you can see this into the future lines up beautifully with the top part of this blue resistance support box, where the bottom part of it is 50 cents, and you see the big wicks with the moving average. That's how we knew when we were forming that double bottom and held, and we called for a pump. We thought it would pump up into here and then get rejected and have to at least have a consolidation. But then it would make sense to pump up again, because this 60 cents, 66 cents in the top part of this blue resistance box is in the same area where you got rejected here, rejected up here off it, rejected up here off it in the symmetrical triangle, and then rejected it back here, right? So you can pull these old pattern lines out into the future, and now it's much, much deeper into the future, and it becomes critical areas again to watch. And that's why we still think 66 cents could happen. But in order to do that, as we zoom in now to the micro time frame, or the 2-hour time frame, or the 4-hour time frame is really what we need. The way to get up there is you got to stay above these moving averages that you're at now, and you got to get the volume to come back in, because it's been decreasing for quite some time. You got to breach this 50 cents, then hold it as support and make a run up there to these two major areas of upper resistance. If you get rejected either here or right now, when you start to come down, your major support level is at 37 cents. And these are the areas here and here, resistance or support, resistance, that I'd be watching out for as the Fed talks. And in the bullish most case, what usually happens is the Fed releases their minutes and the price dumps. And then it quickly snaps back the other way as the Fed starts to talk and the market starts to pick up of what the language is, right? So that's what I would watch out for. A quick dump early on today, as the Fed releases the statement a half hour before they talk. And then as the Fed talks, I would expect that snapback and a multi-day run in the equity markets and in the crypto markets. And that's what's been happening for the past couple of times. Every time they've raised interest rates, it sells off when they release the statement. Then as the Fed takes questions in their press conference a half hour later, the markets start to turn around and snap back and pump, and then they have a pump for about 6 to 10 trading days before it gets deflated. And then the market looks back and says, it's still in a shit house. Inflation's still high, and then they sell off, right? But you can see we got this consolidation into Bitcoin, and if this thing breaks up, I'm looking at that $24,000 target, right? And it still holds this 19.2. Keeps it on the top side of this blue resistance box, which can keep it bullish. And the bullish scenario is to pump up here as your first major upper resistance, and then your second topping out of any kind of pump, super pump, right? The super pump to on 2022, 30,000 would get it rejected. But I think this has a pretty good chance in the next few days to happen. As long as you hold this, you won't come in down in here, but we still will eventually come down and hit that $13,000 target. Like, subscribe, and share. I gotta get back into work. Peace and love to my beautiful audience on a sunny. We'll leave you with the sun, right? Look how beautiful the sun is today. Not a cloud in the sky. That late fall, light, beautiful blue color up there. Peace and love.